So how do you manage to get on with that challenge? Hopefully it wasn't too tough. Let's have a go at doing it together. Inside the IDE then, I'll go to level button and make a new script here called level button. That looks good. Do we have C#? Yes. Inside the code then, the first thing we're going to need to do is export the text direct for the checkmark and also for the level label. Then delete the process because we're not going to need it. And then you may have done things differently to me here, so don't worry if you have, but I've made a separate sort of setter and then variable here. You may well have used a property. I've done private string level number string is equal to E. So if we see E anywhere, we know something's gone wrong. I've named it actually level number str just to indicate it's a string, because reading it elsewhere in the code, you could infer maybe that it's an integer or something or a float. So definitely saying we're using a string here. Then the first thing we can do is actually inside the ready, we want to set the text of our label equal then to our level number string. Now this hasn't actually been set up yet. So we need a setter for actually setting this, which we're going to set from the main. So I made a new function called a public void and set level number string. And here's where we're actually going to set this value here. Now the only thing to be careful of here is that we invoke this before we've invoked the ready. In other words, before we add as a child. So we'll want to instantiate a level button, then invoke this, then add it as a child to the grid. Now we'll do it later on with showing and hiding the checkmark because we don't have anything to do with the scores inside the code at the moment. So that completes everything we need inside level button. So we can switch our attention over to the main then. So in the main.cs, we haven't done absolutely anything yet. I think what we can also do from here actually is delete the process. We're not going to need this inside here either. So we need to expose or export here our grid container because we're going to be adding things to our grid. So we'll need to drag and drop that in the interface. Now we face a bit of a choice. We could either directly load the level button scene in here with the path or also export it and drag and drop it. In this case, I've gone for the loading actually with the hard coded path here. So scenes, level button and level button.tscn. So that's going to load up our level button scene. Then what we want to do is we want to just set up our grid. So I've got a separate function for doing that here. Here I'm going to put a normal for loop in here. The length that we'll go to is actually initially, and I'll see how this looks, our game data dot and level count. Then we're going to make ourselves a new level button here. So it's going to be set equal to, and then we want our level button scene instantiate. And we'll also template that as a level button. And now what we want to do here is actually set the level string here. Here we need to be a bit careful because I is 0 index. So we actually need to make a string of I plus 1. So I'll do a formatted string here, and then the value in here can simply be I plus 1. Now that we've done that, we can grab hold of the level button grid and we can add this level button as a child. And that should be all that's required. Try not to forget this because I keep doing things like that. There we go, set up grid in the ready. And I think that's all the code we need to have everything actually set up, and we should see the level numbers. Now the grid might be much too big here, I'm not sure, so we'll take a look in the interface, and I think I did sort of limit this to 30 when I was doing some testing. So let's have a look in the IDE. So back in the IDE, we've got the level label to drag across here and the check mark to drag across here. Then also in the main as well, we want the level buttons grid as well. Okay then, so I'll give this a whirl, and we have an okay looking grid. So we've got 40 levels. Okay, I did limit it to 30, maybe slightly better with 36. In fact, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to stop this, go back into the code. Now obviously you can play around with this as much as you'd like, but I'm actually going to comment this little bit of code here out and just limit this to 36 levels. I think like this. It's a bit brutal, hard coded like that, but it'll fit nicely on the grid. So just go back into the UI, and that looks okay. On the bottom right here, you can see I've changed the separation horizontal and vertical for the grid to 6 pixels just to squash everything up a little bit more. But I think that'll do for our use cases. So we've got all the labels on here. Pretty sure now that we can click these and then be able to actually select a specific level that we then want to load. To do that though, what we need to actually be able to do is build up the level. So we're going to switch our attention away from the main scene, which is more or less complete already, and actually get into sort of the real meat, I guess, of this game, and that's actually building up our levels from code. So we'll start looking at that in the next lesson.